desperate, aren't we?
So they get a kill.
Never let your guard down.
Put it in perspective, hard mode Cindered Shadows is considered harder than Lunatic base game. Alright, I'm assuming Lunatic you mean Maddening, right? I'm assuming because I never heard of Lunatic mode. But yeah, I would agree with that. Cindered Shadows is just overall a harder game or expansion, whatever you want to call it. It's overall a harder experience than this game. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's just like Cindered Shadows was made to be harder, which honestly, that's pretty good. There were a few maps in Cindered Shadows that I hated and I thought were a bit much. Overall, I think Cindered Shadows is mostly a success. I think specifically, I hated the Chapter 3 map. I despise Chapter 3's map and Cindered Shadows. I'm trying to think what else. Chapter 5 and 6 were kind of rough as well, but like overall, I think it was good. So yeah, Chapter 3 I didn't like. I don't remember Chapter 4. Chapter 5 and 6 were kind of rough. Final chapter was fine.
I have gratitude.
So yeah, about half of the Cindered Shadows map I didn't like. Half, I don't know, something like that.
I thank you.
Chapter 4 was the escape map. Oh, I didn't like the escape map. Never mind. I'm mixing up the chapters. So, oh, I accidentally, like, what happened to my chair? I thought my chair broke. But, I'm mixing up the maps here. So, Chapter 1 was... I'm gonna be as vague as possible, but Chapter 1 was the intro map. That was good. I don't remember Chapter 2, but I think it was fine, or it was good. Chapter 3, I did not like Chapter 3 at all. That was the one with the key... What was it called? It was like with the toy... The big monsters, the toy robots, whatever, you have to fight. And you have to, like, go to the pillars and use the key. And if you get the wrong one, the enemies spawn again. Reinforcements. I didn't like that one. Chapter 4 was the escape map. In that case, I didn't like the escape map. And I think Chapter 5 was fine. Chapter 5 was okay. I also wasn't a big fan of Chapter 6, but it's definitely, like, not as good. But yeah. But I think overall, the only ones I would say I hated were probably 3 and 4. Even 6 was kind of annoying, but I think 6 was okay. I think 3 and 4 were the only ones I, like, despised with a passion. Like, I kid you not, I like, would have... If I was streaming the game, I would have quit on Chapter 3 or 4. 1 was versus the Ashen Wolves, 2 was Reinforcement map, 3 was the Golems. Golems, that's what they're called. And Key map. 4 was the Escape map, 5 was the Thieves map. I do remember Chapter 5 now, and 5 and 6 were the last two. I think 3 and 4 were the only ones I just despised heavily. I think everything else was either fine or pretty good. If there is something I give Cindered Shadows credit for, it did have a gimmick for, like, most of its maps. Like, most of the maps felt like you had to do something different. I did appreciate that. Like, Chapter 3 was a neat idea, but I hated Chapter 3. But yeah, I did like how Cindered Shadows tried to change it up with the maps. We'll get there eventually. To Cindered Shadows. I don't remember what I'm doing with you, Leonie. I kind of want to raise your flying level in case I want to change you to a Pegasus Knight. Because again, I'm running out of stuff to do, and I think having the option is nice. Where are you, Leonie? You're right here. So I'm gonna bring you just bow and flying are going to be your focus for now. I think Cinder Shadows mostly got the job done. Also, introducing the characters were great. I love all the Ashen Wolves. I think the story, I'm not going to say much about the story, obviously, but I think the story was really lacking. The story was probably the weakest part. But even then, the Ashen Wolves just made the game better. Like, I think the game was clearly just meant to be like, oh, the Ashen Wolves getting their time and getting their development. So, that's fine. But the actual plot, there was an actual plot, and it just, It was clearly lacking in many departments.
I learned a Everything went pretty well today.
That's good. I'm gonna take off authority as your focus, honestly, and level it up a bit more. I'm gonna take out sword as your focus. Goals are so hard. I always I never know what to do with goals. Also, doesn't Ingrid... Yeah, Ingrid I wanted to be a Falcon Knight. Oh, but her sword level is already really high. Bernadetta is the one that I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna get to do it. Yeah. Begin training.
Professor.
Fate and Authority. Just keep what you're at. I have to think about what I want to do with Annette. I would like to go see Ignatz. Thank you for asking.
How incredible. What a striking color. Ah, Professor, look at this stone. Such a brilliant blue. You don't normally find stones like this around here. I ought to grind it down. I wonder if it would still be the same color. To make pigment for my art. Good supplies don't come cheap. I prefer to make my own. Blue is especially expensive. How fortunate that I chanced upon this remarkable blueness. Oh, I'm sorry. There I go again, blathering on and on about painting. Oh, yes. But I know that I can get rather caught up in it and, enthusiastic. You know, Professor, no matter how impassioned I become about my art, you never hold it against me. One could argue that I'm better off preparing for our next battle. I am becoming a knight. Oh, Professor, please don't say things like that. I gave up on my artistic dreams long ago. To support my family, I will be a knight. That's that. No. I know it's the right thing to do. I'll continue with my art as a hobby. I don't think I could ever give it up. When I see something beautiful, I can't suppress the urge to paint it. I don't have a choice. And if my art can bring happiness to even one person, that's good enough for me. Professor, I have a favor to ask. I'm painting a portrait right now. When it's finished, I'd like to give the piece to you. Would you take it? Perhaps it can bring you a little happiness. That will have made the effort well worth it. Oh, excellent! Is that a promise? Because I'm really going to put my heart in it. That is, I'm going to enjoy partaking in this casual hobby of mine.
Ignatz is a great character. I like Ignatz a lot. As I say about all the Golden Deer except Raphael. And possibly Lawrence. Even Lawrence has some highlights, but again, he's definitely low tier with Raphael.
I'm sorry, Hilda.
Give me all these points.
Can't let this.
I'm starting. I get it.
Alright, well, we're done with quests, and I don't think there are paralogs this month, so battling's probably out of the question.
Thanks. I'm glad I asked you.
Got those done. Oh, now I'm back to the network, okay. Yeah, I don't really care about battling. We're gonna just get motivation up. I'm gonna give my, I don't know if it's a hot take necessarily, but I'm gonna give my opinion of the monastery. Specifically the part 2. You guys, if you've been watching me, oh, I think I have something for Hilda. Oh wait, I think I just have to harvest, right? Is that for Hilda?
I'm pretty.
Because, like, I have to do a quest for her. I have to figure that out. Find something of historical significance? What? Just for a remnant that the merchant would be proud to add to their collection. I want to start a collection that chronicles the history of Fodlan, but I'm having trouble getting my hands on anything specific. Honestly, it might be easier to excavate an artifact rather than trying to find one for sale. I have no idea what I need there. This I have to find flowers, but I don't know where to find these flowers that Hilda wants. Also, like, let's do a few fishing. I'm also gonna give, again, I don't know if it's a hot take, but you guys have heard me, if you've been watching the playthrough, of how I feel about the monastery. I love it. It makes the game for me. Wait, I have to focus. This is really fast. Oh, man. But, I love the monastery. There are some that hate on it. There are some that like it, or some feel mixed about it, which is understandable. I love the monastery. I will say that in part 2, it does get weaker. And it does start to feel like, why and what's the point? And here's my bit on that. Because once you get to part 2, there are a few things, there are a few problems with this. But, the first problem is that I'm probably going to do this for the rest of the playthrough. All I find myself doing in part 2 is just eating with people, raising their motivation, which I do like, but you do it so much in part 1. I feel like part 1 just has more freedom with the monastery. It just doesn't feel like... It just doesn't feel as needed in part 2, I guess. It just feels much more empty. And also, I guess it's the fact that, like, in part 1, you're trying to... I don't know, some people don't recruit characters. Depending if you recruit characters or not, you're not able to recruit anyone anymore. So, it's like everything's just, like... It's like you don't really know what to do with your time, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. It's kind of like in Persona games, if you were to max out every single confidant, what would you use your time for? But even then, Persona has much more options, so that's a pretty bad comparison. But, I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way. I'm not saying I hate the monastery. I'm not even saying I hate the monastery in part 2. But I think the monastery gets worse in part 2. And the monastery was already really good, so the fact that the monastery gets worse in part 2,
Professor?
it doesn't get terrible, it just gets worse and gets more pointless, in my mind. It's still the same thing, but like honestly, it starts to feel like what's the point?
Hello there.
Yeah, I just want to leave that out there.
Return soon, please.
But it doesn't change my opinion of the game at all. I mean, slightly. Luckily, you can just skip the monastery. Like, you could skip the monastery if you really don't like it. So honestly, it's probably like, you could like rest, you can like skip the monastery, but like, That's my bit. I'm probably just gonna explore when I do. Oh, this is for something, I'm guessing. That's for the, it's for the, thing. But yeah, honestly, I love the monastery, and I definitely don't think it's bad in part 2, but it's definitely weaker than it is in part 1. I definitely love doing it much more in part 1. I feel like part 2, it just becomes repetitive. Not really repetitive, but like, it just kind of gets pointless, as I said. It just doesn't feel like there's much worth doing with your monastery time. But yeah, this is not a hate to the game, and I do still like the monastery. It's just worse in part 2. It's just like slightly worse. And I neither like or dislike monastery. Frankly, I just hope it goes back to traditional Fire Emblem, which is what I enjoy more. That's understandable. Alright, we're back, I'm guessing. I have no idea what just happened there. Like, I actually don't. It only happens with 3 houses. Only happens with my Switch. I don't know why. I don't even know why I'm going to do a faculty training. I'm not. But, what was I doing again? Oh, raise motivation of characters.
No. I like this dish. It was my father's favorite. Eating. Yummy. I appreciate.
I have no idea why that happened, though. It's so weird. By the way, I'm just raising everyone's motivation because Exhibit A, as I explained, all I do in this day is raise everyone's motivation. But, as I was saying, I don't know why that happened. It only happens with my Switch. I played Tales of Xillia yesterday. I had a different issue come up. It wasn't the same issue. The issue I had with Xillia didn't end stream. The issue was just my capture card got loose with a wire. But Streamlabs crashes. It's gotta be something with Streamlabs. But the thing is, it only happens with 3 houses. It has never happened with any other game I played. Actually, that's a lie. I think it happened with Heroes 2 once. That's so weird. I don't know why it happens. It feels like 3 houses it's happened a lot with. Like, mostly when I play this game, it happened. Yeah, sorry stream ended. But luckily, we're back. But yeah, I was talking to, yeah, someone in chat said they didn't like, no, Raptor said he didn't like the, like or dislike the monastery. I was in the middle of responding. I don't know if my response got through, so I'll say it again. That's understandable because I'm not a traditional Fire Emblem player, but I can imagine the monastery being a turnoff for some Fire Emblem fans. I can completely imagine that. The way I see it is 3 houses is like Fire Emblem and Persona having a baby. And that's what it feels like. These are like very Persona-esque elements.